Hello everyone, Pete here, and this is the ultimate starter setup guide for the ROG Ally and Ally X. And the vast majority of this also works for all Windows-based PC gaming handhelds like the Legion Go too. Nothing like this has been attempted on YouTube, as we've spent literally hundreds of hours making tutorials for us to fully unlock and realise the vast potential of our Ally. Whether you're a complete beginner to the world of PC gaming handhelds, or are more experienced and just need a quick refresher. And we'll go through the 11 key areas, and these will be in the exact order I suggest too. So the first area is a 14-step optimization guide, as the Ally is just not optimized at all for gaming out of the box. Then in area 2 we'll go through a Debloat guide to get rid of all the unnecessary Windows junk that clogs up our Ally to free up space and improve performance. With our Ally now fully set up and optimized for gaming, in key area 3 we'll go through the easy steps to play all of our favourite childhood retro games on the Ally by setting up the incredible EmuDeck app. Talking of emulation, in key area 4 we'll go through the super easy steps on how to play all of our Switch games on our Ally. Then in area 5 we'll move on to the very best way to remote play our PS5 console, whether at home or away from home on a public Wi-Fi or cellular hotspot. For key area 6, we'll go through the setup process and overview for an incredible app called Lossless Scaling, which actually doubles our frame rates within games, making them so much smoother and more enjoyable. At 7 is a guide to AMD Fluid Motion Frames, which is another app similar to Lossless Scaling that can also significantly increase the smoothness of games. And in this section we'll also go over 15 of the top tips when using AFMF. For key area 8 is an optimization guide for the Ally speakers to get them sounding exactly like we want, as they can be a little bit on the quiet side, especially on the Ally X for some reason. At 9 are the top 10 tips that every ROG Ally and Ally X owner absolutely needs to know. Key area 10 are the 13 essential accessories for the Ally that I absolutely could not do without. I highly recommend getting each of these, and links for everyone will be below in the description. And for the final key area 11 is if you really want to take your Ally to the next level, then we'll go through the super easy steps to upgrade the internal SSD to get more storage, and also set up dual boot Bazzite to give us the very best of Steam OS and also Windows. So grab your favourite beverage and snack, get nice and comfy, take your time as you work your way through this, enjoy the process, and here we go. So let's dive straight in with the crucial step 1, which are Windows updates. So let's head into settings, so here at the very bottom in the Windows update section. Before we check for updates, I would highly recommend making sure that this get the latest updates as soon as they're available is toggled to off, as these preview updates can cause some headache inducing conflicts. Let's press the check for updates button on the top right to make sure we're fully up to date, and if we do get any preview updates like this, then just dismiss them, just to be on the safe side. Next, for step 2, let's head into the AMD software app. Now in the early days of the original Ally, we used to have to come here and do AMD driver updates in this area, but thankfully these are now all done within Armoury Crate. One thing I would recommend is going into settings, then preferences, and just turning all these notification toggles to off. And stuff like that AMD pop-up in the top right every time we launch a game is a little annoying. Listen, I would love to hear from you and which of these AMD features do you like to use and for which type of games. Help our awesome community by letting us all know in the comments. There is a final thing in the AMD app we need to change, so let's go to display, scroll down to the very bright section, and this is on by default for some reason. Let's toggle this to off, as it discolors the screen when on battery to save energy, which isn't great. For step 3, let's head to the My Asus app, and I would recommend registering our Ally if you haven't done so already. Let's head to System Updates, click the Check for Updates blue button in the top right, and I do believe most updates should now appear within Armoury Crates that we'll come on to next. But if any needed updates do appear like here, then let's stay up to date and we'll need to restart our Ally too. Let's now head into Armoury Crates for step 4 by pressing the Armoury Crate button, head into the cog settings by pressing the top RB button. Sorry, just one moment.
Love that sound.
And an amazing quality of life tweak for us in that the update center is slap bang right in the middle for easy accessibility. Let's head into here, and this is arguably the most important area to stay on top of all the crucial updates that we get, so let's check this pretty regularly. So in this case, let's update, not forgetting to plug in when updating this, and indeed all the Windows and My Asus app updates too, of course. For step 5, while we're in Armoury Crate, let's configure our RGB thumbsticks by going into Aura Sync, then Aura Effects, and this is a very personal choice in going through each one of the effects and choosing the one that we prefer. I'm going to pick rainbow and increase the speed. I think that the RGB around the thumbsticks are really underrated. I think that they add a fantastic hardware visual flair. Although I do love tacky stuff, I'm so tacky in fact that one of my favourite places here in the UK is a place called Blackpool. Just think if you tried to order Las Vegas off Temu, and yep, that's about what you'd get. Step 6 is performance optimizations within Armoury Crate. So let's head into performance, then GPU settings, and the default is 8G. But setting this to auto should give us some notable improvements to game performance. But this is widely debated, so do let us know which memory settings that you find best in the comments. And changing this requires a restart. Just 2 more changes in the performance area. Let's head into the Eco Assist area, and for some inextricable reason, the CPU boost by default is set to on. But let's turn this to off, as this will massively boost battery life. It's a completely unnecessary battery drain, and we only need to turn this on if we're desperately struggling for performance, like in some PS3 emulation for example. And one of our awesome viewers, Julian, recommended this one. Man, you guys are the best. I love our handheld gaming community so much. So if we're downloading loads of games, perhaps overnight, then set this option called Keep Machine Running when the screen is off to on, as it will just turn the screen off when we're plugged in instead of annoyingly turning the whole Ally off, stopping our downloads. Thanks Julian for the tip. For step 7 is calibration. Now we shouldn't have to go into the calibration area within Armoury Crate to do this. My Ally X feels fantastic out of the box, but if we do feel that our Ally thumbsticks, buttons or gyro are a little off, which may happen over time, then it's this area that was one of the best updates Asus has actually given us within Armoury Crate. Step 8 is to customize Command Center. This is obviously in the Edit Command Center section here on the right. I like to have operating mode, then control mode, and end task top row, then keyboard, real-time monitor, and so on. And of course, this is a very personal choice, but it is worth spending just a few minutes to get this exactly how we like it. And again, I'd love to know what Command Center layouts that you have and on what rows, so do let us know in the comments. For step 9, let's create a manual performance profile. Let's head into the performance area. The first time we click on manual, we get this pop-up saying we need to click apply. Thanks Asus. Let's drag the sliders lower and again set this to what we want. I'll choose 21, which is great for more intensive random, open world, big budget games for instance. We can change the fan curves if we want to as well. Press apply, and we get a scary message telling us that Asus isn't liable for any damage. Lol. Again, let us know what kind of manual profiles that you have and for which games that you find best in the comments to share with our Ally community. Step 10 is our final optimization within Armoury Crate, and that is setting the game library exactly how we want it. And guys, can I just say that this carousel style that we finally now have with the recent 1.5 Armoury Crate update is what I've personally wanted since day 1 of the original Ally. Just a minute. Yes, Asus, finally, thank you. I'm pumped, man, pumped. Sorry about that. Let's press select, then customize library. And like I say, this older vertical view just never really made the Ally feel like a gaming handheld for me. I've been a console gamer my whole life before getting the OG Steam Deck back in 2022. That introduced me to PC gaming for the very first time. Thank you, Valve. Again, this is personal to you. If you want my settings, then I love horizontal. Then I love the cover artwork alignment at the bottom. I like my cover art style chunky, so I have it on 4. I turn the game title to off, as pretty much all the games have the game title in the artwork. Put show background image to on to keep things vibrant. I blur out my background image to about 20% and set the darkened background image to the same. For step 11 is game by game optimization, and there are 3 areas to this. First is pressing X on the specific game to optimize, click on set game profile, go down to configuration, and here we can automatically set what operating mode this specific game starts on, both plugged in and on battery. This is huge, and not many other YouTubers are talking about this. It saves us messing around in Command Center. The second is press X, then select game info, press select game art, and we can upload our own. Many of you are aware of an amazing game art website called SteamGridDB.com. We thank our fellow Steam Deck community for this. We just type in the game or app in the search bar, scroll down to find the horizontal one that we want. I love this design here. Press on it, press the download button on the right, hold our finger on it, select save image as. I just save it temporarily onto the desktop, Back in Army Crate, press add and select to add it. And the third is press edit game artwork, and we can stretch to zoom it to get rid of those annoying bars top and bottom that drive me insane. I do admit I'm probably a little OCD. In fact, you've probably worked out how obsessively obsess, if that's a thing, over all the thumbnails here on the channel to get them just right. It takes me hours because you awesome viewers deserve the very best. So the ability Asus have given us to get this cleanness in our cover artwork is now very welcome. We're in our final 3 optimizations now, and these are Windows settings. For step 12, let's configure the time format. Let's hit start button, then settings, then time and language, and the default is a 24-hour time format, and it took me a while to figure this out because it's hidden. You think changing the time format would be right here in dates and time, right? But nope, wrong, no sign of it here. To change the time format, we have to go into language and region. Go down to regional format, press the down arrow, click the change format box, and right here we can then change our clock to AM and PM instead of the 24-hour formats, which I really don't like. It's super basic stuff like this that Windows makes so much harder than it needs to be. Step 13 is a crucial one. Let's press the start menu, start to type in Windows features, and a turn Windows features on or off control panel option appears. Let's click this to get into the setting. Virtual machine platform is on by default. Microsoft does recommend turning this off for gaming, so let's toggle this to off, then applies the changes and we restart. And finally, for step 14, let's click the start button, start typing in core isolation, and this system setting should come up, so tap on this. We get this Windows security pop-up box, and in the memory integrity section, toggle this to off, press yes in this box, then let's press restart and yes again. Now before some of you start picking up your pitchforks to say no way, do not do this, like what happened in my optimization guide from last year, Microsoft themselves officially tell us and link in description that there may be a performance impact on gaming devices with this on. And if we want to prioritize performance, then to turn these off. So just do whatever you feel comfortable with. I know that for me, performance absolutely really did improve as a result. So maybe just avoid those dodgy websites. So having Windows 11 on the ROG Ally or Ally X has many benefits, such as the ability to play Game Pass games natively, and also online multiplayer FPS games that require anti-cheat like Black Ops 6 for example. However, as we know that Windows is just not optimized for gaming. But not to worry, as here is a Debloat guide to get rid of the unnecessary Windows junk and free up precious memory resources in just 5 simple steps. And this of course works for all Windows-based PC handhelds like the Legion Go 2. For step 1, let's open Command Center and change our control mode to desktop. Then press the right trigger, which is the right click onto the start menu. Then click on a terminal and in brackets admin, then click yes on the pop-up. Now don't get freaked out with this terminal stuff. And so for step 2, let's type this, which is IRM space christitus.com/win. Hit the 1, 2, 3 button, then this right arrow, then this line icon, then space and IEX. So it should look exactly like this, and it should read IRM space christitus.com/win space this line icon space IEX, then press return, and it will now bring up this screen. For step 3, let's now debloat Windows. So let's head to the tweaks tab at the top and click on the standard, which then ticks most of these items on the left. If you use a lot of Xbox gameplay recording, then you may want to untick the game DVR option. We absolutely 100% need to untick the disable Wi-Fi sense option, otherwise it'll probably cause Wi-Fi issues. I want to debloat the Edge browser, so I'm going to tick this. And you may want to tick the set hibernation as default, which is generally better than just sleeping our ally during a game to resume later. I really wouldn't recommend touching the advanced tweaks, as debloating our ally can really mess our ally up. In fact, I was very close to basing this debloat guide on a third-party app called Blow2Nose, which seems very popular. But if we're really not careful, then yes, as I say, that stuff can really get messed up that I don't want to risk. But if you use Blow2Nose, then give us your thoughts and tips below in the comments. So with our boxes now ticked, we can hit the Run Tweaks button on the bottom left and the magic will begin to clear out all of the junk and do some debloating. Yes! When it's finished, we should get a tweaks finished blue message on the top right. It took my ally about 10 minutes to do this, and here on the right we can customize Windows preferences, like changing the theme to dark if we like this. And I'm going to disable the widgets button in taskbar, so stuff like the news and weather won't keep popping up, which can be annoying. For step 4, let's now head into the config tab. And on the right, I'd recommend heading into the power panel section and just making sure that our ally is on performance for the optimum gaming experience. On the left, we can reset any Windows updates, which is super helpful if any do mess up our ally. And if we click on the setup auto login, we can enter our Windows password here. So after this, when we press the power button, we enter straight into Windows, which is ace. And yes, finally for step 5, let's head into the Windows settings and into apps. And it really is worth spending a few minutes here to free up valuable SSD space by uninstalling any games that we haven't played in a while, like A Plague Tale for me, and also any Windows apps that we just really don't use. So for me, it's Windows Copilot and also Windows Teams, for example. Manually uninstalling these is generally considered better and much safer than using automated debloaters like Blow2No, as I mentioned earlier, which can be overly aggressive and may also remove essential system services, which can then cause irreversible damage. But I'd love to hear your thoughts and tips on this fragile area of debloating, so please do let us all know in the comments. And a huge thanks to the amazing Chris Titus for his incredible Windows utility scripts that we used for this, and I'll link his full vid below, and also to our great viewers Phil for recommending Chris's debloat method, and also Aris who recommended us not to disable the Wi-Fi Sense option. So the easiest and most epic way to play all of our favourite retro games is using an incredible free app called EmuDeck for Windows, which greatly simplifies downloading and configuring all of the best emulators we'll ever need together in a slick user interface. So here are the 8 simple steps to get EmuDeck for Windows set up on our Ally X, which of course also works for the original ROG Ally, Legion Go, and indeed all Windows-based handhelds. Plus I'll share my top 3 tips to get the very best out of EmuDeck. So to do this, I'm going to use an awesome foldable Bluetooth keyboard and trackpad by a company called Zedo. I highly recommend this, and I'll leave a link below in the description. Step 1 is to download EmuDeck. So let's open our favourite web browser on our Ally, which in my case is Brave, and let's head to the official EmuDeck website, which is emudeck.com, link in the description below. Let's click on the top right where it says download, scroll down just a little, and simply click on the Windows option. We can join the Patreon for a few extra perks if we want to, and to also support these awesome developers. I'm going to select download for free for the time being, and we'll join the Patreon later, and simply select where we want to download to, which in my case is the downloads folder. Next for step 2, let's install EmuDeck. So just head to the folder where we downloaded it, which in my case is downloads, double click to run it. You may get this slow DNS detected message like I did, so just click yes. In this Windows PowerShell message, click yes. In the Gits for Windows message, click yes. I would recommend making sure we're plugged into the charger to do this, by the way, and it just takes a few minutes while everything installs ready for us to configure. For step 3, we now need to configure EmuDeck, as this Easy or Custom message pops up towards the end of installation. We can choose Easy mode and customize options later, but let's select Custom mode to walk through each step in this together and get all of our emulators set up exactly how we want them. Next, let's select what drive we'd like our ROM directory to be on, either the local C drive, or you may want to select the D drive if you want all of your games on your SD card. Retro games are called ROMs in emulation terms, by the way. I'm going to select the C drive and then click next. Now let's select our device. Currently the Ally X that I'm doing this on still isn't available here, but of course the Asus ROG Ally option is perfectly fine. So let's select this, then click next. Next is pick your level of integration screen. This is a very new addition, and this wasn't on my tutorial last year. Now making this tutorial, I selected low here for the first time around, but I ran into significant issues, so we do need to select the higher integration. I repeat, it is crucial that we pick the higher integration option, as we do need Steam ROM Manager even on Windows to avoid issues down the line. On the next screen is where we pick our theme for Emulation Station, which is where we launch our games from. Again, a lot more have been added since last year. This is a personal choice which you prefer, But for me, I absolutely love this Artflix one. I would highly recommend that you pick this, then click next. Now select every emulator that we want to be installed and configured. I'm going to click MAME, which are arcade machines, then click both. The Dreamcast emulator called Flycast, then click both. The Atari Jaguar emulator called Big PMU, and finally MGBA, then click both for Game Boy Advance games. And with everything now selected, let's now click next. Next is configure autosave, and I highly recommend that we set this to on, so all of our games autosave on exit and auto load into our save points. Next is the configure retro achievement screen, and these are PS5-like trophies for retro games. I would highly recommend creating an account at retroachievements.org if you haven't already, and then logging in here, as this is a nice little addition when playing our retro games. These next options are all what you personally prefer as a gamer. For me, I'm going to select game bezels to on for even more of a nice retro feel for these older systems. I'm going to select 4:3 aspect ratio for classic Sega systems, and also 4:3 aspect ratio for classic Nintendo games. I'm going to select the wider 16:9 aspect ratio for Dreamcast and N64 games, and also 16:9 on the net screen also for GameCube games. I'm going to turn LCD shader to on for these 4 classic handheld retro systems, but you can keep this off if you don't want to truly recreate the old retro look. Next, I'm going to put the CRT shader to on for 2D games on these systems, as it brings back memories for me of those old school TVs I had as a kid. And I'll choose the CRT shader to be on for classic 3D games on these systems too. And remember that we can always change these settings later on, so we don't need to stress about this at all. Next is this overview screen, which displays all of the configurations that we've selected. So if you're happy with all of this, then click finish to begin the installation. And this is where the magic happens, as EmuDeck now saves us many hours by downloading and configuring all of the emulators. Yes! Okay, so after about 10 minutes in, we get this visual C++ message, so just hit yes. Then after a few more minutes, we get this Python message. Don't worry, no snakes are included, simply just hit yes. After a few more minutes, we get this Pegasus front-end message, just hit continue. So we're very near the end of the installation process, and we get this message about ROG Ally configuration, so just hit next. Next we get this copy our game screen. Let's click manual copy, then click on open emulation folder, then click close. In this waiting for manual copy screen, hit next. And on this how to launch our games screen, hit next. This screen tells us our emulation hotkeys that I'll mention in the tips section in a moment, and hit finish. Next is this what's left screen, and EmuDeck is now fully installed. What we've just done, we only need to do this just this once. So let's close EmuDeck by clicking close, and we can get back into it in 2 ways. Either by clicking on this newly created shortcut, or we can hit the start menu, go to all, scroll down, and EmuDeck is now installed. So let's load this back up. So remember that this part of EmuDeck is the back end. This is used to change settings and is not used to launch our retro games. We use an app called Emulation Station to do this, and we'll come on to that in a moment. I do want to highlight some key settings here in EmuDeck quickly. The first is quick settings. I highly recommend making autosave is on, bezels is already on, and we can change stuff like aspect ratios here at any time. Next is manage emulators. Keep an eye on this regularly, as if any emulators have an orange notification on it, then it means an update is ready, and it definitely is worth updating these regularly. Steam ROM Manager is here, and we still do need this even as Windows users for our controls to work correctly, and we'll come back to this in a moment. The screen resolution options is here, and I'd recommend setting all of these to 1080p, like PS3, Switch and Wii U 2, as of course the Ally screen is 1080p, and then hit save. Retro achievements are here if you haven't yet logged in. BIOS check is one of the most helpful tools that EmuDeck offers. The more modern retro consoles need BIOS to work, and right now when I click everything is red, but don't worry, we'll make this screen in just a moment. Cloud saves are near the bottom to sync between devices if we are a Patreon member, or we can just back up our games to the cloud here if we want to. The Get Early Access button brings up to join their Patreon area if you'd like to, and the final option is we can uninstall EmuDeck if we ever need to. So with EmuDeck now installed and fully configured, and we know now how to access its settings, we need to get our retro games, which in emulation terms are called ROMs for step 4, and there are 3 ways to do this. The first way is to open up our favorite web browser. Again, in my case is Brave, which is especially great for this. Now, as YouTubers, as I'm sure you're aware, I can't tell you exactly where to get ROMs from, but if you type in the name of the game, like in this example is Street Fighter 2, which is a classic, then the name of the retro system, so like SNES, then the word ROM like this, then I'm sure you'll find exactly what you're looking for. Something else that may help to find large collections of ROMs is I just love how the internet is like a huge archive. When we've downloaded a ROM like this, let's click on it, extract it back into our downloads folder, open up the newly created folder, select the ROM file, cut or copy it. I'm just going to cut it, create a new tab, open our emulation folder that EmuDeck created for me, which is in the C drive. Open this very important emulation folder, click on the ROMs folder, and now we start putting our games, which remember in emulation terms are called ROMs, into the correct system folders right here. So for example, Game Boy Advance games go into this GBA folder, GameCube into this GC folder, and so on. So let's open up our SNES folder right here and simply paste the ROM into this correct system folder, just like this. The second way is that if you've been doing PC handheld gaming for a while, then hopefully you've got tons of ROMs you've accumulated over the years backed up on an SD card like I have. I've set up EmuDeck previously, so head into our backed up emulation folder on our SD card, then ROMs, select a system here, which in my case is my favorite retro console, the SNES. Select what specific games you want, or I'm just going to select all of the ones I've backed up. Open a new tab, select the C drive, then our newly created emulation folder, then ROMs, then in this case SNES, and simply paste our backed up games into our new folder. And the third way, which is the easiest way to get ROMs, is to buy this 1TB SD card already packed full of over 40,000 retro games. I've literally just covered this in a vid. I'll leave a link to watch and also a link to purchase below in the description. So we simply insert this SD card, click on the D drive, open the RetroBat folder. We can of course launch a different emulation system called RetroBat here, but for this video let's head to ROMs, select any system. So like my first PC for me was the amazing Atari ST, which has thousands of ROMs here. But I'll head into the PS2 folder. Again, hundreds of ROMs here, but I'll pick Simpsons, hit and run, copy it, open a new tab, select the C drive, then our new emulation folder, then into ROMs, into the PS2 folder, then simply paste it into here. So easy. Next for step 5 is BIOS. So just go back to the main emulation folder, and this folder is so important. I cannot stress this enough for our ROMs and BIOS. And let's now open the BIOS folder, and we're going to place our BIOS files right here in a moment. Let's minimize our BIOS folder, open up EmuDeck, which I'll do from this new shortcut. Scroll down on the left hand side to the excellent tool called BIOS Checker, and this will all be red if your BIOS is missing for more modern emulators like PS1 and 2, Switch, Sega CD, Saturn, Nintendo DS and Dreamcast. Let's open up our favorite web browser. Brave is particularly awesome for this. Again, us YouTubers can't tell you exactly where, and guys, so many gamers new to this get freaked out here. But BIOS is really so simple. We just Google search the name of the system, so in this example PS1, and then the word BIOS. That's it. It really is that simple. And you guys are super smart. You'll find out what you need doing this. So here I've downloaded the single PS1 BIOS file called scph1001. Let's cut it from the downloads folder, go to the tab where our emulation folder is. We're already in the BIOS folder. Simply paste the PS1 BIOS file into here, just like you can see here. Go back into our EmuDeck settings, click off the BIOS checker, then back onto it. And yes, the PS1 BIOS has been detected and is now green. Yes. If this is your first ever time doing this, then just find the BIOS for each system, which does take a little bit of time, but we only need to get them once. And then I recommend backing them up somewhere safe like an SD card. And I'll demonstrate this. So let me minimize EmuDeck, open up a new tab, head into my D drive, which is my SD card, then the emulation folder, and here in this backup BIOS file I placed all my BIOSes in here a few years ago. So let's select this, then copy it, then head back to my tab in my newly created emulation folder I just made on the C drive, and paste my backed up BIOS folder in here full of my BIOS files that, as I say, I did a while ago. Then open EmuDeck, click off the BIOS checker, then back into it, and it's pretty much all green. So Ryujinx is red for me, even though my firmware is in the Ryujinx BIOS folder, and also my 2 key files are both in the keys folder. So in our start menu, let's head to the EmuDeck folder, then open the Ryujinx emulator. This first time it says keys not found. So click File, then open Ryujinx folder, then System, paste our title.keys file and also our prod.keys file here, then go to Actions, then install keys, then install keys from the zip. I've got mine, which at the time of recording is 19.0.1. Click Yes to install these, then OK, then close Ryujinx. Now EmuDeck, when we rescan, is still showing red, but if we head back into the EmuDeck folder, then open Ryujinx again, we don't get that keys are missing pop-up, so don't worry, it should still work even though it's showing red in the EmuDeck BIOS checker. So now that our ROMs and BIOS are in the correct folders, for step 6, let's now look at Steam ROM Manager. Make sure Steam is completely closed by looking in our tray, tapping on the Steam icon, then tap on Exit Steam, then in EmuDeck click on Steam ROM Manager in the middle on the left. This very first time we need to choose our Steam directory, so hit Browse, head to the C drive, then Program Files and in brackets x86, then the Steam folder, then press Select Folder. Hit Next, and here we select our Steam user account. If yours doesn't appear here, then you may need to log into your Steam account in the official Steam app first within Armoury Crate. And yes, make sure that we've logged into the Steam app here first, then click Save, then hit Next. And we only need to do this first time. Now Steam ROM Manager is very different to what I'm used to. I'll be really honest that I really don't like this look and it really threw me off. So let's head to Settings. In this Select Theme dropdown, select the EmuDeck theme. That looks much nicer. Click Add Games, then Parse, then Back. And remember, any times we add any games to the ROMs folders, we need to click Add Games, then Parse each and every time. If we click on View Games, we can also see our games right here too. So let's click Back, exit out of Steam ROM Manager, and exit EmuDeck. When we click on Add Games, then Parse, this Save to Steam button may appear, and if it does, click it. Then when the Done Adding Entries message disappears, we can finally exit out. For step 7, let's launch the front end called Emulation Station by hitting Start, then open the EmuDeck folder, then the Emulation Station app. This very first time you may get this message, so just click Quit and then open it back up. Remember that EmuDeck is the back end where we change our settings and all of the behind the scenes stuff like the BIOS checker, and this Emulation Station is the awesome front end where we can access all of our favourite systems and games in one convenient place. Let's change the theme by pressing Start, then UI Settings, then Theme Downloader, click Proceed this first time, select any you like here, but as I say, my absolute favourite is Artflick, so let's download that. So now go to Theme, scroll across to Artflicks to select this, and now we have this absolutely gorgeous theme that displays all of our systems in an incredible way. All of our ROMs are categorized by system, and to scrape artwork for your ROMs, hit the menu button, click Scraper, click on Scrape these systems, go down to Select All, and press Start. And if we have a lot of ROMs, then this may take a while, so definitely grab a hot drink and snack. But afterwards we have this truly jaw-dropping presentation that includes box art, description, game logo and background for each game. And for step 8, while we're in this amazing front end called Emulation Station, swipe up to get our Windows menu, right click and select Pin to Taskbar, as this really will be one of our most used apps. So that when we quit, it's ready right here to go, and with one click we're into our glorious retro gaming. And as promised, here are 3 quick tips. Number 1 is that if you're having any issues at all, then head to manage emulators in EmuDeck, click on an emulator that's not working correctly like Dolphin, and we can reset the configuration, which should fix it. For issues with Emulation Station, click Reset Configuration. Tip 2 is to always make sure Gamepad is selected in control mode, otherwise controls will not work. And tip 3 to quickly exit out of a game is just to press select and start buttons together at the same time. So Switch emulation on the Ally X is insane. So let's go through the 8 simple steps to get us up and running, and this of course also works for the original Ally and also the Legion Go too. For step 1, let's start by downloading Yuzu by opening up our favourite web browser, which in my case is Brave. Now I'm not going to tell you exactly where to download it from for reasons, but a simple Google search will help you with this. But I do have to say that don't just love how the internet is an archive of information. Next, for step 2, we will extract and install Yuzu. So let's head to where we downloaded Yuzu, which in my case is the downloads folder. You may need to extract it, but I've already done this. I'm just going to copy it. And now let's move it into the location we want it to be, which in my case is just the C drive in Documents. For step 3, with Yuzu now extracted, we now need to launch Yuzu. Open up the Yuzu folder, scroll down, and inside is a file named Yuzu. Pretty shocking, right? Click on that file twice to open Yuzu, and this very first time we'll get this pop-up telling us that encryption keys are missing. And these files are called the prod keys and also the title keys. Now, due to obvious reasons, I can't tell you where to get them from because of legal reasons, but there are many guides available online on how to do something called dumping them for our actual Switch. And of course, you may be able to find them online, but that's your call. For step 4, we'll now place our keys in the correct place. So I have my prod.keys and title.keys files right here in the downloads folder. Let's open Yuzu back up, click on Tools, then install decryption keys, head to the location of the folder, which as I say in my case is downloads. Click on the prod.keys file, and this decryption keys were successfully installed pop-up appears. Let's close down Yuzu, press on the yuzu.x file again to load it back up, and we know the process is successful as we won't now get our decryption files are missing pop-up. So now we're all good. For step 5, we now need to add our Switch games. Let's double click on this main area, find a location that we want to store our Switch games in, which in my case is the Documents folder on the C drive. Click Create New Folder, and rename it to Switch. And we now have told Yuzu the path to the location of where our Switch games will be. Those of us who are rocking a new Ally X may want to put our Switch games on our fully working SD card slot, which is a perfect location. Yes! And now it's just a case of placing our Switch games we own in here. Again, there are many guides online of how we can dump them from our Switch. And of course, you may come across some games online, but let's make sure we support our awesome developers in any case. After we place our games in a folder we created, we can head back into the Yuzu app and our games will appear right here. So let's tap on it or press B to launch it. This first time we press View, and then full screen to make sure it fills the gorgeous Ally's 7-inch 1080p screen. So with Yuzu now fully installed, for step 6, we now need to get the Ally's controls working with the emulator, as if we press LB and RB they currently do not work. But don't worry, this is super easy and we don't need to map anything. Let's close Yuzu by clicking on End Task in Command Center, then Yes. Now let's launch Yuzu again, simply click on Emulation at the top, then Configure, and a new window will appear. Next click on Controls, and under Input Device let's select the profile called Xbox One Controller 0, then press OK. To test this out by launching a game, press the top LB and RB buttons, and by the way, I just love how nice and clicky these now are on the Ally X. And we can see that the ABXY buttons now work, as do the thumbsticks when we scroll through selecting a character, yes. Just a final note regarding controls, and that don't forget in Command Center in the control mode section that we have gamepad selected. It's so easy to forget to do this. For step 6, we'll now select the best settings for the Ally by going to Emulation, then Configure, then Graphics, and these are actually all very good as they are, and we only really need to change them if having some issues for some reason. I do recommend changing 2 things though. The first in System and changing the device name to our own name, which for me is Pete, just so it appears within games rather than the name Yuzu. And the second is in General, and instead of it always asking us when we close Yuzu what we want to do, let's change this to Never Ask. So when we now close Yuzu, it will just simply close without that annoying prompt. Just 2 more steps now, and for 7, let's add Yuzu to the game library in Army Crate. by clicking on the select button, then add game app to library, press the LB top button, select the yuzu.exe file in our yuzu folder, and it should then appear, and it didn't for me the first time, so I just press cancel, LB again, and then it did appear. I'll give you an awesome tip, which is to press X, then set game profile, go to configuration. One of the most underrated new features of this week's new Armoury Crates 1.5 update is here in that we can select what operating mode we want for Yuzu when it launches in both plugged in and on battery. Less intense games may be fine on silent, but I'm going to select performance to be on the safe side. And this is so great as it saves us messing around from now on in Command Center, as Yuzu just doesn't need 25 watts on battery for Yuzu, which drains the battery quite a bit more. Winner! And finally, at 8 is installing DLC or updates. So let's launch Yuzu from the game library, go to File, and let's click on Install Files to NAND. Here it's just a case of selecting where our update or DLC file is, which in my case is on the desktop. A pop-up message saying, please confirm these are the files to install. Let's click Install, and we should now get this message saying that the file was installed if we did so successfully. And we can double check this as it now should appear in add-ons. So PXPlay, or PSPlay as it was known until recently, is a fantastic app to remote play our PS5 console to our Ally X. And it has two advantages over the very popular Chiaki PS5 remote play app. First is that it could very well offer better visual quality, less lag and better performance than Chiaki. And two is that PXPlay easily allows us to play our PS5 anywhere away from home, like on a cellular hotspot. Here are the 7 easy steps to get this set up and optimized correctly, including controller mapping and also setting up that cellular hotspot, and this of course works for the original ROG Ally and indeed all Windows-based handhelds like the Legion Go too. So let's dive straight in, and for step 1 let's download the PXPlay app by opening up our favourite web browser on Windows, which in my case is Brave, and let's head to streamingdv.com, link in the description. On the top right let's click on PSPlay. Click download. The current version at time of recording is 1.2 for Windows, which has recently added gyro support for the ROG Ally and Ally X, which is sweet. So let's scroll all the way down to the bottom. There is a demo version that you can try out here, but I'm going to click on the Windows_portable zip file right here, and it'll go into our downloads folder. For step 2, let's launch and activate the app by heading to where we downloaded it, which in my case is the downloads folder. Let's click on it to unzip it. Select it, press cut, go to where you want to move it to, which in my case is my documents folder. Press paste and it'll move it here, which just takes a few moments. Go into the folder and click on the PXPlay application file to launch it. If you haven't purchased it yet, then let's click purchase license, select a web browser to open it with, and here we can purchase a license for around €13 in dollars, which I think is definitely worth it. As I say, if you're not too sure, we can download a demo, so I'd say at least give it a try, and there's a Linux version if you have a Steam Deck too. Let's head back into the app, click start button to make it full screen. I have already purchased it a while ago when it was called PSPlay, so I'll click on the key on the top right. We'll just enter our email address and very importantly, include the dashes in the license key right here. So open up Command Center, press keyboard and begin typing. And when activated, the green lock on the top right will no longer be present. So now PXPlay is activated. For step 3, let's register our console by clicking this register new PS button. Select your console, which in my case is a PS5. Now let's load up our actual PS5 console and head to settings, then to system, then to remote play, then to link device. Make sure you keep the screen on during this registration process, this is important. And enter this code into the PXPlay app where it says registration number. So click on the keyboard icon to do this. Enter the 8-digit code as displayed on our PS5 console. Then click register PS5. Let's now click on this via PSN login yellow option. Click on this yellow open PSN login website option. Here let's enter our PSN ID, email and password. You may need to enter a code sent to our phone if you have a 2-step verification enabled on our account, like I do. It will open up a blank white screen, so just tap on the very long and random address at the top, press copy, minimize our web browser, tap on the PSN login yellow redirect URL area, press Command Center, Open up our keyboard. This long web address we just copied, just tap on it, and immediately we should get this PXPlay was successfully registered with our console. Yes! So now we've registered our PS5 console to the PXPlay app. For step 4, let's now configure PXPlay by clicking on the cog icon to go into settings and click OK on this first pop-up message. In streaming, let's make sure 1080p resolution is selected. In the FPS section, make sure 60 FPS is chosen. For the bitrate mode, feel free to keep at auto, or you may want to experiment. For example, I've seen online that a lot of people are finding 2500 seems to be the optimal setting, so I'm going to select this and try this out. I want the app to automatically connect to my PS5 console, so I'll leave this ticked, and the other options are your personal choice, like confirm action and sleep options when we've finished remote playing. In the video section, in the video decoder box, make sure that this is set to Vulkan. In the video rendering engine, ensure Vulkan compatibility is selected, and make sure the HEVC decoder box is ticked and we're all good. I haven't changed any other settings, so things like PS5 haptic feedback I've left on, so I would recommend familiarising ourselves with these anyway, just in case there are any that you may want to change. For step 5, let's now add the PXPlay app to our game library in Armoury Crate. By opening up Armoury Crate, press the options button, then add game or app to library, click the top left LB button, go to where we install the app, which for me is the documents folder on the C drive, then the PXPlay folder, click on the pxplay.exe file. It should be ticked, so we can just click done, and we can now launch it from within Armoury Crate. Now let's press game options, then set game profile, then configuration, and I'm going to select that it automatically launches in performance mode when on battery power. But let us know if you prefer silent or any other operating mode that you think is best for PS5 remote play below in the comments. For step 6, let's now map the controls, and we can see in the PXPlay app settings under keyboard that the PS button is set to control and the touchpad is set to B. Let's map these in Armoury Crates by opening it up, head to settings, then in control mode click configure, click configure in game mode. I'm going to select the rear M1, then primary button, go to keyboard, select B, select secondary function, then keyboard, then B again, and now our PS touchpad is now mapped. Let's now click on the rear M2, click the primary button, select keyboard, then select control, then press the secondary function, then keyboard, then again control, and our PS button is now mapped here. Let's quickly test these buttons out by opening the PXPlay app. An important note in that we always need to make sure our gamepad is selected in control mode, as controls will not work if using desktop or auto. Select our PS5 console. I'm here at home, so we select local connect, and we'll come on to remote connect in just a moment. We're now remote playing our PS5 console, and this feels so smooth to control with great visual quality, so much more than the PlayStation Portal. I'll select one of my favourite ever games in The Last of Us Part 1 Remastered, and we can see that pressing the rear M2 button does indeed now bring up the PS button, which is crucial for PS5 remote play, and the rear M1 button is the PS touchpad button, which in The Last of Us brings up our inventory menu, and we're now ready to set up playing away from home. And finally for step 7, let's set up playing away from home by opening up Windows settings, then head to network and internet, then Wi-Fi. Now grab our phone, which in my case is the new iPhone 16 Pro Max, and head to personal hotspots in settings. This Wi-Fi password will enter onto our Ally X in just a moment, so just place our phone in a location with good cellular coverage. On our Ally X, click on show available networks, and here our public Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi at a friend's house, or in my case my iPhone cellular hotspot should appear here, so click on this, then click connect, and enter the hotspot password from our phone right here. And if successful, it should say connected and secured, and we are now on a cellular hotspot. Let's head into Armoury Crate to open PXPlay. This first time, select gamepad mode and press Y. Select our console. When we play away from home, we now select remote connect, press automatic, and we can now play our PS5 console anywhere away from home. So Lossless Scaling is an amazing app that allows us to not only boost our resolution from say 900 to 1080p, but to also get up to 4 times the original frame rate in just one click, drastically making our games run much smoother. Here's how to set it up and a guide on how to use it in just 5 easy steps, which of course also works for the original Ally and indeed all Windows based handhelds. An important note as we start in that I highly recommend following my 14 essential step optimization guide, link in the description. If you haven't done so already, to optimize our Ally X, like turning off virtual machine platform, setting core isolation to off as well, setting our RAM to auto, and turning off very bright before we start lossless scaling. And I've also turned off all of the AMD features in the AMD app too, to avoid any possible conflicts with lossless scaling. So for step 1, let's download the Lossless Scaling app. So let's head into Army Crate, then to Game Platforms, then let's open the Steam app. In the search menu at the top, let's start typing in Lossless Scaling, and the first app from the store should be this duck on a blue backdrop, which is a pretty random choice for game art, but this is the one, so let's click on this. We can see it's got 86% positive reviews, which is great. It does cost around £6 or dollars, which I do think is worth it. And don't forget, we can always get a refund from Steam if we really don't like it, if we've used it for less than 2 hours. For me, it didn't automatically appear within Army Crate when I bought it, so I went back into the Steam app, go to Library, click on Install, select where we want to install it, which in my case is the C drive, and click Install. And it now appears in Army Crate and has also created a desktop icon for easy launching too. So now I have the app installed, which you obviously only need to do this one time. For step 2, let's launch the Lossless Scaling app, either from Army Crate or as I'm going to do from my desktop shortcut. And it did take a few minutes this first time to launch. So every time we want to use this lossless scaling feature, we launch it first, and notice that this is only available exclusively on Windows. It's not currently for use on Steam OS. And when it loads up, we get this main game profile screen, and it definitely is worth getting to know this a little bit the more we use it, and we'll come back to this in a moment. A quick tip is that the Ubisoft Connect app has the Ubisoft Plus subscription for £15 and dollars per month, and this allows us to play the Ultimate Editions, day one of the latest games like Outlaws, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, Assassin's Creed Mirage, The Crew Motorfest, and also Avatar, which is pretty neat. Now we don't want to close all running programs as we need the Lossless Scaling app open, so let's select to launch the next program anyway. So with our game loaded, Lossless Scaling does not work when our games are in full screen like this. So let's head to our game's inbuilt settings, into the video section, and select the window option. So now we are ready. For step 4, let's now boost the resolution. So in my example with Outlaws here, now I've set the windowed mode. Let's now set this from 1080p to 900p. Back into the Lossless Scaling app, let's hit the scaling type drop down. AMD FSR does work well, but the default LS1 I'd say is the best, so let's select this. To activate this, we press the top right blue scale button that starts a 5-second countdown. Then quickly head into our windowed game, and it has now been upscaled to 1080p. So right here, even though we set it as 900p in the game, it's now running upscaled using the Lossless Scaling app to 1080p. On running through the gorgeous little village here in Outlaws, I think we'd be hard pressed to tell if this was side by side next to the real 1080p to notice the difference. Pretty awesome stuff. Of course, this probably is dependent from game to game, so let us know in the comments which games you've noticed that particularly benefit from this boost in resolution using the app. If we swipe up on the taskbar back into the Lossless Scaling app, and we click on the status arrow on the bottom left, then this confirms that yes, the resolution is at 900p, but it truly is now scaled up by a factor of 1.2 to 1080p. And we can then head back into the game to enjoy this high resolution, and now let's boost the FPS. And so for the final step 5, let's now boost the FPS. So let's swipe up from the taskbar, head into the Lossless Scaling app, and it's now in this frame generation column, which is currently set to off. Now I couldn't swipe up and down to scroll for some reason, so I'm going to use this really cool compact wireless Bluetooth foldable keyboard and trackpad. I'm going to cover this in my essential Ally X accessories video next, so make sure you're subscribed as you do not want to miss that one. So in the main drop down, let's change this from off to LSFG 2.3. In the mode, we can select ×2, ×3, or an insane ×4 scaling. Let's choose ×2 for the moment, which really does give the best results. leave performance to on, leave everything else as is as we scroll down. In sync mode, quite a few people choose VSync half, but default does work super great, so I'm going to select this. We can leave max frames at 1, but raising can improve performance, but it does also introduce some lag. We need to experiment here, but I'm going to select 2. Draw FPS is what appears in the top left, so let's keep this to on and we're all good. So recap of the 5 key things here. LSFG 2.3 is selected, mode is ×2, sync mode is default, max frame latency I'm going to try 2, and draw FPS is set to on. Let's press the blue unscale to reset, then scale, then quickly head into our game. And this is now 900p boosted to 1080p, and we've now also doubled the FPS from around 25 to 50. And this does feel noticeably smoother, and I know I'd be very happy to complete this game at these settings. It really would make an incredibly enjoyable way to complete this game. Out of interest, let's try boosting the FPS by ×4. So let's select this ×4 in the mode, press the blue unscale and then the blue scale. Our game goes full screen, and it's telling us it's going from around 18 FPS, which I'm not sure if that's right, to around 70 FPS. This is very smooth, but it does glitch out a bit when we spin around rapidly, so while it may work better in other games, I think for this I'm going to swap back to ×2 where we are hitting the high 40s, and as I say, I think that this is the sweet spot for lossless scaling. So in case you're new to this, AMD Fluid Motion Frames 2, or AFMF 2 for short, is fancy frame generation tech designed to increase frame rates and smoothness across thousands of games. The 5 key improvements this 2.1 update promises are new optimizations, tunable settings for a better experience, AI optimizations for improved quality, lower latency, and just an overall better performance. AMD highlights 3 particular improvements to image quality with this 2.1 update, which are reduced ghosting, which is very welcome, something called fine feature restoration, and also overlay handling. So let's now update to AFMF 2.1. So let's open Armoury Crate, head to the update center within settings, click on check for updates, and we can actually see here that this new 2.1 update is not available within Armoury Crate, at least at the time of recording. Instead, from our start menu, let's head to the My Asus app and launch it from here. Head to the System Update section, click on the blue check for updates button, and this new AFMF2 update is part of this AMD graphics driver update, which has the number 9000 at the end. Then simply click the blue update selected items button to update. Okay, so you can tell that it's dark now as I've just recorded footage for the 2 games on the current AFMF 2.0 version to test against this new 2.1 update. So I'm going to hit that blue update button now, and it took me about 20 minutes to update, and I would recommend plugging in to do this. After it's finished updating and our Ally restarts, I would recommend going back into the My Asus app, and if the AFMF 2.1 update installation was successful, then there should be no further update showing. We can also double check in the gaming and graphics section in the AMD app, as it should now state AMD Fluid Motion Frames 2.1, as we can see right here. Let's launch the first game to test this, which is The Witcher 3. I'm plugged in on 30 watts turbo to get the most FPS possible. Let's head into the AMD app, into the Performance tab, then the Overlay section on the right, and enable this metrics overlay, as the command center FPS monitor is inaccurate when it comes to AFMF2. So in the gaming tab, we can see that AFMF is not on, and in the game on the default settings with no AFMF, we're getting just around the 60 FPS mark. And it's at 1080p, and it does look really decent. In the AMD app, let's now enable AFMF 2.0 with anti-lag. For AFMF2, we need to be in full screen or borderless full screen, and also turn VSync off. And wow, we're now hitting around the 100 FPS mark with AFMF 2.0. It does look great, but to me there is just some weird warping from time to time, and I just don't know whether AFMF 2.0 is the best way to play this. So I've just updated to AFMF 2.1. Let's launch the game. I have this new 2.1 update enabled in the AMD app, and wow, to my eyes we're seemingly getting around 5 to 10 FPS more. on this new update, which is awesome. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think, but for me it does appear to look visually slightly better. When I do quite a bit of a spin around super fast, there does appear to be some slight decrease in lag, and that weird ghosting effect on faces that drives us insane doesn't appear to be here in this 2.1 update, which is really nice. And now let's try out the epic Resident Evil Village. We have AFMF set to off, we're again on 30W plugged in turbo for optimal FPS, at 1080p on default graphics settings, and we're getting the mid to high 50s, but this does look fantastic, with no weird graphical imperfections when not using any AFMF. And now let's enable AFMF version 2.0. We're on full screen at 1080p, VSync needs to be off for any AFMF, and when I went straight back into the game then it didn't appear that any AFMF was kicking in at all, as there were no jumps in FPS. I restarted the game but still nothing. I checked in the AMD app and AFMF 2.0 was enabled, but still there was no boost to FPS. In the gaming and graphics part in the AMD app, AFMF2 was showing as enabled. I went over to performance, then went back to gaming. AFMF 2.0 was now showing disabled, so I put it back on, and this did finally work, as back in the game, it was now hitting the mid 90s and even around the 100 FPS on AFMF 2.0. Now this could be me, and I'd love to hear your experience with AFMF 2.0 in the comments, but there are some noticeable graphical imperfections and weird warping stuff happening. That for me just breaks the immersion of being in the game. Okay, so I've just updated to the 2.1 update, so let's launch the game again. The gaming section of the AMD app have put this new 2.1 update on along with anti-lag, and in terms of FPS I think it was roughly the same as 2.0, which was the mid 90s and early hundreds. But to me, lag again appears to be very slightly less, and even more noticeable is there now seems to be much less weird graphic imperfections going on. Stuff like no weird head ghosting again, and the gates this time feel like a huge graphical improvement over the old AFMF 2.0. So early impressions are that this 2.1 update really does seem quite a bit of a sizable upgrade, and if you perhaps weren't too impressed with 2.0, then I really would recommend you giving this another shot. And here are the top 15 tips to get the most out of it, including how to get rid of stutters, a game-changing tip, and also should we use AFMF2 with Black Ops 6? So tip 1 is to definitely make sure that we have AMD Fluid Motion Frames 2 installed, and to check this we press the Windows Start button, press all in the top right, head into the AMD app, head into gaming, then the graphics tab, and this new AMD Fluid Motion Frames 2 should now be available right here for us to enable. If for any reason we don't have it installed, then we can go into settings within Armoury Crate, then into Update Center, and our update should be available here, and it's version 32.0.12011.7001. Tip 2 is a big one, in that if a game supports AMD's other type of frame generation technology called FSR3, which does tend to be the more modern titles like Spider-Man, then we should always choose this instead of using this new AFMF2. And definitely do not use FSR3 and also AFMF2 together. And here is the complete list of games that are officially supported by AMD for FSR3. A link to this is below, and obviously you can screenshot this, of which many of the big hitters like Spider-Man I just mentioned, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Last of Us 1 and Cyberpunk 2077. So for all of these games, do not use AFMF2. Instead select the FSR3 option within the game settings, as these have FSR3 built directly into the game. So this will therefore give us a better experience instead of using AFMF2. Tip 3 is to realise that AFMF2 just does not work in some games. For example, Forza Horizon 5, like our great viewer Ryan discovered, due to AMD actually disabling the ability to use AFMF2 because of how movement is in these certain games, as these just lend themselves worse to AMD Fluid Motion Frames 2 unfortunately. Tip 4, and to add to this, is that there are a few games that will actively run worse with AFMF2 enabled, with the recent Path of Exile 2 seemingly being a prime example of this. So it's definitely worth keeping an eye on the comments in vids like here on the channel to see any issues that others such as Ling Ling within our amazing ally community make us aware of. For tip 5 is that if we do want to monitor FPS in games, then do not use the inbuilt real-time monitor within Command Center, as this will give incorrect readings when using AFMF2 and it actually disables it. So let's open up Command Center and toggle the real-time monitor to off. so that it's not in use. Instead, open up the AMD app, head into the Performance tab at the top. In the tracking area on the right, press the eye icon for any info you want to see like the FPS. In the Overlay tab, enable the Metrics overlay right here. And this now gives us a fully accurate monitoring overlay to use when AFMF2 is enabled, although there is a drawback to this that I'm going to mention in a moment. Talking about monitoring FPS, tip 6 is to realize that before we add AFMF2, that it works best when games are already hitting around 45 to 50 FPS before applying it for the best experience. And this is because the more frames that AFMF2 have to start with, the better the results will be when the artificially generated frames from using AFMF2 are introduced to make an even smoother experience. Tip 7 is to tweak 2 in-game settings before enabling AFMF2. Here I'm playing The Witcher 3, which is a great use case for AFMF2 because it doesn't have a FSR3 option in-game settings with it being an older game, and it can get graphically intense. So the first is to set the display to full screen or borderless window. And the second is to turn VSync 2 off. It's very important to do these 2 things so that now when we head into the AMD app, enable AFMF2, then back into the game, our games that we apply AFMF2 now really do feel super smooth. With The Witcher 3 for example here now going from the mid 40s FPS to the mid 70s, sweet. To link in with this with tip 8 and to answer a great question by one of our great viewers Pete, hey great name by the way, who asks, is there a button to select AFMF2 while in a game? First thing is that it's not a stupid question at all Pete, we're all in this and learning together. And second is that yes, we should be able to enable AFMF2 during a game in 3 ways. The first is in Command Center, then in Performance, then GPU Settings, and enabling fluid motion frames to on here, but this currently doesn't work for me. The second is in the Edit Command Center buttons on the right, click Add on an empty slot, select AFMF icon right here, so it now appears within Command Center. But at the time of recording, this also doesn't seem to work. And when it does show that it is on and I go into the game, the controls have glitched out and the FPS is not in the 70s. So do let us know in the comments if either of these work for you. So the third method that I use and does 100% work is open Command Center and press the show desktop icon. From the desktop we can just go into the AMD app quickly and enable it just from here. Tip 9, while we're in the AMD app, is to make sure we turn on anti-lag 2 alongside AFMF2 to get the lowest latency possible. And this automatically gets enabled when we enable AFMF2, which is Ace. And don't forget we can see the frame time lag right here too in the AMD overlay right here. Tip 10, and again in the AMD app, this new performance mode drop down introduced with the new AFMF2, we can now choose either quality or performance, but it detects when we're using an ROG Ally or Ally X, so it's best to leave this on auto. You may be wondering what this search mode refers to, and this relates to when we quickly turn around in games. It briefly disables AFMF2 to avoid graphical artifacts showing up from too quick of a turn. It's dependent on resolution, and 1080p or below is for standard and high is for 1440p or above. So we should just leave these on auto, with the Ally having a 1080p screen obviously, and the auto setting will recognise this. Tip 11 is one I did mention in the last vid, and it is super important. That AFMF2 doesn't seem to work well when games are loading the shaders cache, as it may force quit the game. So it is best to disable AFMF2 before we do lots of pre-shader caching. The 12 let's answer a great question for one of our great viewers Vincent Lyle, which is if we switch AFMF2 on in Windows, then switch over to Bazzite, does this work? And the simple answer is no. AFMF2 can only be used solely within Windows. And now let's look at our final 3 super important tips. We're in our final 3 now, and for tip 13 should be a game-changing one. And what I'd recommend is to leave AFMF2 set to off in the global settings right here in the AMD app at all times. Then in Armory Crate's game library, press X only on the specific games that we want AFMF2 on for. So for example here I'm selecting The Witcher 3, press Set Game Profile, go to GPU Settings, and right here we can turn AMD Fluid Motion Frames 2 on specifically just for this game, and also anti-lag 2. So whenever we load up The Witcher 3, it will automatically have AFMF2 and also anti-lag already enabled. However, again at the time of recording, this does not seem to be working for me. The FPS are not in the high 70s. Again, let us know if this is working for you in the comments below. And if it is broken for many of us, then hopefully Asus can get this fully patched up and fixed soon. Then it truly will be a game changer because it means that we don't have to keep toggling AFMF2 and anti-lag on and off between each games that we load. Tip 14 is to solve some stuttering issues like our great viewer Despy Blitz is experiencing, as there does appear to currently be a bug when the AMD real-time monitoring overlay is used for some reason. So the best practice here is to only use the real-time monitoring overlay to try and hit that 45 to 50 FPS sweet spot, then to go into the AMD app into performance to disable the metrics overlay, then enable AFMF2 and anti-lag in the gaming section, and now with the AMD overlay no longer enabled, this should solve any potential stutters. And finally, tip 15 is should we use AFMF2 in one of the biggest games at the moment, which is Black Ops 6? And the answer is no, we don't need to use AFMF2 for this. And this is because if we check out our FSR3 list I mentioned earlier, then we can see that Black Ops 6 is on here, with it being a modern title. So when we press the RB button to head into settings, then graphics, then in the quality tab, we can by all means use the NVIDIA image scaling or indeed switch to AMD FSR3, then enable frame generation right here, and this gives us well over 80 FPS without AFMF2. So one of the very best features of the Ally X, just like the original Ally, are the incredible Dolby Atmos speakers. However, both I and many have noticed that the speakers on the Ally X definitely do sound quieter and less pronounced than the original Ally.
Good defending. Bruno Fernandes has it. Well, a decent idea, but just slightly overcooked.
Here are the two solutions to make them loud.
All hands on deck. And a goal! That will do it. They've been pushing for it.
And even louder.
Well, a really good run. Can he convert? A glorious chance.
So let's dive straight in, and when I noticed this lower speaker volume after a day or two of getting my new Ally X, I really didn't think it was a hardware issue, as the Ally X has exactly the same number of speaker grills as found on the original Ally X, which is 20 per speaker. It was here when I figured out it must be a software issue, so I went into Windows System Settings, then into Sound. The volume was at an absolute maximum, including going into the volume mixer section, and yet every individual volume level was at full max. Then remember that the amazing Dolby Access app that comes automatically installed with every Ally, and when we go into the settings area of this app, the Ally X is shipped with the game preset automatically configured, which incidentally has a professionally tuned for Republic of Gamers logo at the bottom. Now I could be wrong on this, as I sold my original Ally to get this Ally X, but I'm pretty sure that that model shipped with the Move It preset out of the box. So for solution number 1, let's select this, which as the description tells us offers virtualized surround sound and clearer dialogue, which is what we've been missing from the game preset. And now let's see what difference there is, and I'd recommend listening to this under headphones.
Fernandes. Racing forward, trying to catch them out. Oh. Well, nothing for them to worry about in the end. Good defending. All hands on deck. And a goal! That will do it.
So I don't know about you, but changing it to this Move It preset really does offer more clarity, virtualized surround sound and clearer dialogue as a result. And I'd encourage us to experiment, so let us know in the comments if you think the detailed, balanced or warm settings within the Move It option give us an even better listening experience on the Ally. And now let's look at solution number 2 to make it even louder. So for me personally, I find changing to the Move It preset in the Dolby Access app has now rectified the Ally X speakers, and find that this is just the right volume now. But if you do want to go even louder, there's another solution. And to this we have to give credit to one of our awesome viewers, Just Switched 8841, who commented on a recent community post that they use FX sound and now it's too loud sometimes. By the way, keep an eye on the community tab on the channel, not just for daily polls but also stuff like this speaker issue, as opposed to when I come across this type of stuff. So let's now head into the Microsoft Store, type in the 2 letters FX, and the first app that comes up should be FX Sound. And this app is so cool, it's a full-on equalizer packed with presets, and best of all, it's completely free. So let's download it, which just takes a minute or two. Click yes on the user account control pop-up. Make sure that the huge button is red for it to be on, and voila! We can now either keep it on the general preset or change to another preset like this volume boost, like we can see right here. Or I think I'm going to change it to the movies preset. And let's now hear how this sounds. Again, headphones recommended.
So underway again here, 1-0 the score. Swift ball into the area. Threatening, but a good punch by the keeper. Is this the moment? In it goes! He's made a brace for himself. No stopping him.
Wow, I really hope it comes across as my microphone may have compressed it a bit, but this FX Sound app now makes the sound just massive and full on. And with it being completely free, I would highly recommend you giving it a go, and again let us know which of the presets that you find best in the comments. So whether you've just got your ROG Ally or Ally X, or have had it since launch day like I have, these are the top 10 tips that you absolutely need to know, including the one that I get asked about the most. So as we get started, I assume that you've already fully optimized your Ally using my 14-step guide, and if you haven't for some reason, then the link is below. Tip 1 is that, as we know, the command center button is incredibly useful for things like changing between silent, performance, manual and turbo modes. But holding down the command center button is effectively our Control Alt and Delete function. We can head into the task manager and force quit any games if a game glitches out and quickly need to end it. Tip 2 is another button that we use a lot on the Ally, which is our Armory Crate button. And a super helpful feature that you may not know is that holding down this button actually brings up the button mappings that we've assigned, which is super helpful to know, and we'll talk more about button mapping shortly. Tip 3 is to make sure you know the Ally's shortcuts. So on the rear left is the M2 button, and holding this down and pressing the D-pad up brings up the keyboard. Holding M2 and the left D-pad takes us to the desktop. M2 and the right D-pad brings up the task switcher. M2 and down D-pad for the task manager. M2 plus X for display options. M2 plus A to take a screenshot. M2 plus Y to start the screen recording. And finally M2 and B to show all of our notifications. To locate our screenshots and screen recordings, let's open our folder, open the C drive, click on users, click on your name, so in my case Pete, head into videos at the bottom, into captures, and yes, here is where they're all stored, kind of hidden away. Tip 4 relates to when we launch our Steam games from Armory Crate, as the main Steam window and indeed other windows usually annoyingly pop up instead. Let's click on the top left Steam, then head into settings, go down to interface, and disable this toggle button called Notify Me about additions or changes to games, new releases and upcoming releases. Doing this makes launching Steam games smoother and removes any small annoying Steam pop-up adverts. And while we can't fully remove the main window after exiting the game, it does make life a little bit easier. Tip 5 is how to tweak game settings to get the very best performance. And there are 2 websites I highly recommend to help us with this. The first is rogally.games, and a link is below, and we can search for games and also see what settings that other Ally users have used too, which is neat, like the Resident Evil 4 one that I think was done by our great viewer Droid. And the other is a fantastic resource for us Ally users in rogally.life.com, again link below. There are many great articles here, and if we head into the game settings tab, we can search for any game here too, as well as browse literally hundreds of games, each with super helpful and very specific guides to get the very best from all of our games. I've based my Black Ops 6 and also Indiana Jones video guides on these, and I highly recommend that you check out ROG Ally Life. Tip 6 relates to when we boot into Windows and all the apps like Xbox, Ubisoft Connect, EA Play and other apps that auto-load, which is super annoying and slows down Windows boot up time. To disable all these unneeded and super annoying auto startup apps, let's press the start menu, head into settings, click on apps, click the bottom startup option, and toggle off whatever you want. So in my case it's the EA app, Microsoft Edge browser, the AMD app, the Xbox app, and also the Windows notifications. And so booting into Windows will now be so much quicker. Tip 7 is to always head into the options in whatever game that we're playing, into the graphics area, and always make sure that VSync is set to off, with it being on by default pretty much all the time. And this is because we actually don't need it on, due to our ROG Ally or Ally X's display already having that amazing feature called the Variable Refresh Rate, or VRR for short, and we only need to enable it if we are playing any games that are well above the 120 FPS that the screen can handle, to avoid any screen tearing. Turning off VSync in games is something that I often forget to do, so a big thank you to our great viewers like Walter G74 for reminding me. My new viewers are so smart. And now let's look at our final top 3 tips. Tip 8 is about the best way to sleep our Ally. And of course many of us think that, yeah, just hit the sleep button, right? But doing this often allows Windows to start doing weird stuff, including software updates. And many times when I've done this, in its case, it's ended up heating up, which of course is not good. So the very best way is to hit Command Center and hit the Hibernate button, and this will save the state that the Ally is in before shutting down. And while it's not quite the same as the incredible True Sleep and Resume functionality like we get when using Bazzite within SteamOS, it's as close as we're going to get with Windows. Tip 9 is how to do button mapping correctly, as I always get loads of comments about the mapping of the rear M1 and M2 buttons in particular. So first of all, make sure that no games are open and that we're in Armory Crate, and there are 2 ways to do this. The first is globally, which applies to all games, every single game. So if we head into settings, then configure within control mode, then gamepad mode, and in this key mapping area, what we map here will apply, as I say, to every single game. But my recommendation is just to leave this, and to make sure that the rear M1 and M2 buttons have the set a secondary function box ticked to enable our shortcuts that I mentioned earlier, otherwise shortcuts won't work. The second, and what I would highly recommend, is on a game-by-game basis. And to do this, we select the game we want to remap, so in my case, the awesome PS5 remote play app called PXPlay. Then press the X button for game options, then set game profile, and whatever we change in this specific key mapping section only applies to this specific game. So for example, for PXPlay, assign the B key as the M1 button, like you can see here, and assign the control button as the M2 button, like it is right here. So that when we load the PXPlay app up, press start to make it full screen, and then connect to our PS5 console. The rear M2 button now is our PS button to bring up the menu, and the rear M1 button is now our touchpad. So in the case of the awesome Resident Evil 2, it brings up the map. It is essential to know that when gamepad in control mode is selected, then these new mappings do not work. I'm pressing M1 and M2 button here and nothing happens. So we have to set the control mode to auto. This is absolutely crucial and so important that we don't forget this. And now the rear M1 and M2 buttons work fine. Another essential key remap I'd recommend is the Xbox app. If we go into the M2 button, then into the Action tab and select the Xbox button like this. Those of us who remote play to our Xbox Series S or X console, when we now press the rear M2 button, it now brings up our menu button. Again, this is essential for us, just like the PS button is. And finally, for tip 10 is the solution to the most asked question, which is why buttons on the Ally aren't working, especially if you get loads of pop-ups and screenshots instead. And 9 times out of 10, it's because in control mode, it's set to desktop. So make sure it's set to auto if we've remapped our keys like in the previous tip, or gamepad works great too. So here are my 13 essential ROG Ally X accessories that for me are simply a must buy, most of which can be used with other handhelds like the original Ally, Steam Deck and Legion Go too. And these include one that I just bought recently that I now find indispensable, and also one that every ROG Ally fan absolutely must have. So number 1 is the most essential in a case. I've mentioned in past vids that it really is a shame that Asus opted not to include one with the Ally X in the box. And so I highly recommend this one from a brand with the most random name called IOFEWAC. Yeah, I know it's bad, isn't it? I actually got this for my old original Ally and it fits the Ally X perfectly too. And it's really great value at just £23 and dollars. And there are 4 things I especially love about this. The first is that it has a super durable hardcover case which offers fantastic protection. The second is that it has a huge area for storage at the top, which literally does fit almost all of our accessories in. Third is that it securely locks our Ally X in place with this Velcro clasp so it won't move around in transit. And the fourth is that the area where our Ally X rests is just super soft and feels premium. Essential accessory number 2 is a good microfiber cloth, and this is so crucial in keeping our Ally X screen super clean and crisp, as it can get dirty very quickly. Plus, as us Ally X owners know only too well, that the black matte finish is a fingerprint magnet, so it's good to keep the actual Ally X free from fingerprints too. I use this Spontex microfiber cloth, and this is great value at just £3 for a pack of 4 colourful cloths. Accessory 3 is just essential, and it's a 100-watt USB-C charging plug. As well as a lack of case, it was also super disappointing that Asus opted to include only a standard 65-watt charger in the box, although the Ally X now supports up to 100-watt charging capability. And that's why I highly recommend this Anker charger plug for 3 reasons. The first, that the black aesthetic matches the Ally X perfectly. Second is that it has a flip out plug mechanism, which is perfect for travelling with. And the third, and most importantly, is that yes, it is 100 watts, so it charges our Ally X much quicker. It's the #1 bestseller on Amazon, obviously works with many other devices like laptops too, and is great value at just £28 for such a premium looking and feeling 100-watt charger. The Anker charger doesn't come with a cable, so at 4 is this Anker 10-foot USB-C to USB-C 100-watt fast charger cable. Just like the Anker charger, this feels super premium and durable, so it feels like it really will last a long time, and I really do love this black braided thick cable that doesn't tangle easily and will withstand heavy use. When we plug one end into our Ally X, it matches the colour perfectly, and of course the other end goes into our Anker 100-watt charger. This 10-foot one costs just £9 and is plenty long enough if we want to plug in and charge while gaming in bed or on the couch. On the topic of battery, at 5 is this INEU 100-watt 2500 mAh battery power bank that comes in this cool black mesh cover and USB short cable. This is great value at just £50 and I don't really use this now, as the Ally X battery, as we know, is just incredible. But it is very handy to have if we know that we're going somewhere and we're gaming for many hours without a plug nearby. For accessory 6, let's talk audio. Now, the Ally X speakers are incredible, but when I do want to go wireless with my audio, then this is very much a personal choice, but for me, my AirPods Pro 2 deliver just insane audio detail and great battery life. I find the lag when using them in Windows to be too much, unfortunately, so I tend to use them more in SteamOS that I've installed using Bazzite, which I absolutely recommend, by the way. And there's a Debloat plugin called Bluetooth, which pairs quickly and latency is almost non-existent. AirPods Pro 2, of course, are not cheap at over £200 in dollars, but I use them for hours every day while watching films and TV shows on my iPad Pro 12.9 M4 and also Apple TV 2, so really are worth it for me. At 7 is a wired audio accessory. Again, this is a super personal choice for each one of us, but for me, I really don't like over-ear headphones and much prefer in-ears. And my go-to is the old school Apple AirPods with a 3.5mm plug. And at just £19 in dollars, this is a super cheap wired earphone option. Let's talk storage at 8. And I often get asked by you awesome viewers which SD card I recommend, and it is this Samsung Evo A2 one. I have the 512GB size, which is perfect, but just get whichever suits our budget, and this 512 comes in at a very reasonable £55 and dollars. This 512GB is a really nice size. I've put all my emulation ROMs and files on here, and we can see that I still have plenty of room left. At 9, and keeping with storage, is that if you want to go next level, then upgrading the Ally X's 1TB internal SSD to 2TB or even 4TB like what I've done, then this Crucial P3 SSD is what I've got and is a fantastic option. Now listen, I was super anxious about this going inside my Ally X and doing this, as I absolutely suck at DIY. In fact, I am so bad at practical stuff that when I put a shelf up, I drilled the hole in the wrong place. So we now have to cover it up with a plant. So if I can do this, then honestly anybody can. And I've done a super easy guide for this in my Bazzite setup guide, link in the description. The 4TB is currently $230, I got it for $180 on an Amazon Lightning deal, and the 2TB is £115 in dollars, so just get whichever suits your budget. Accessory 10 is another item I get asked for recommendations on, which is a dock for the Ally X, and this iVanky docking station is a great choice. Again, the black design matches the Ally X perfectly. It has a solid premium feel, and at the back we have a USB-C power input at 100 watts, 3 USB-A 3.0 5 gigabits per second inputs, a HDMI output that supports 4K at 60 Hz to a TV or a monitor, and a 1 gigabits per second Ethernet port. It comes in at a very reasonable £40 and dollars. Obviously it can be used with pretty much any handheld like the Steam Deck, Legion Go, etc. So we're in our final 3 accessories now, and at 11 is a USB hub. Which type of hub to get obviously depends on our own individual needs of types of connections that we require. But for me, this Unit USB-C branded one that has 4 USB 3.0 inputs is a super simple and a great basic option, and great value coming in at just under £14 and dollars. Accessory 12 is my latest purchase. I love this so much, and it's this super compact and foldable Bluetooth keyboard and trackpad by a brand called Zedo. When we unfold it, it has a full QWERTY keyboard, and on the right has a really decent touchpad that makes navigating Windows and also Linux, if we've installed it using Bazzite, just so much simpler and more enjoyable. And when we finish with it, we just simply snap it back into its compact size. I really just can't believe how lightweight and tiny this is. And coming in at just over £20 and dollars, this is simply a must buy in my opinion. And finally, at 13, if you're a huge ROG Ally fan like I am, then you just have to get this LED neon Ally sign, which looks simply stunning in darker environments. Whenever my gamer friends come over, they always comment how awesome this looks. We have it above our TV in the living room, plus it makes an excellent gift too. I really think it looked especially amazing for those of us lucky enough to have gaming rooms or man caves. Plus it's well priced at just over £30 and dollars. I've got the aqua blue option, but it even comes in purple too. So dual booting Steam OS using Bazzite and also Windows is mind blowing. As even though I was very skeptical going into this, I've come to realise that we really do get the best of both worlds. With Steam OS, our Switch games are much smoother. Our game library is much more customizable and looks so much better, and also most importantly we get true sleep and wake functionality. And we get the best of Windows too, such as being able to play games from third-party launchers, the ability to play anti-cheat games, and also being able to download and play natively Game Pass games. Switching between them both is so easy too, as in SteamOS we simply restart while pressing the volume down button to enter the BIOS and launching Windows from there, and in Windows we just simply restart to get back into SteamOS. Here are the 9 easy steps to do this, which of course works for all Windows PC gaming handhelds. Plus I'll share how there's a big benefit to using an SD card with this dual boot setup too. So let's start with the 3 optional and 3 essential things that we need to do this, and I'll leave links to all these in the description. These 3 optional ones are only if we want to upgrade the SSD, which we don't have to do. We absolutely can do this on the internal 1TB that ships with the Ally X, but I really do recommend upgrading the SSD to something like this crucial P3 Plus M.2 2280 SSD, and I got the 4TB one. That'll give us a whopping 2TB of Windows and also 2TB of Steam OS. And remember, if we're doing this on the original Ally, then this needs a different type of SSD called 2230. We also need a guitar pick or something similar to help us separate the Ally case, preferably a thicker guitar pick, and also a small screwdriver to unscrew the Ally case, and also the SSD itself, which I believe they call a Phillips size 0, and I ended up using an electric drill which made it much easier. The 3 essential things that we need are to install Bazzite itself. So a USB flash drive with a minimum of 10 GB. I only have here a USB-A type 1, so I'll plug this into a dock, as obviously the Ally X is USB-C. And we just need a wired keyboard and mouse. I'm going to use these wireless Apple ones and plug in a wire. So step 1 is completely optional, and that is to upgrade our internal SSD storage. I almost got one with a heatsink, but my research showed that these really aren't needed. And I almost got a faster and more expensive one like the 7300 speed one, but again my research showed that something like this crucial P3 Plus one I ended up getting really is perfectly fast enough. So just get whichever your budget allows, and the beauty of it all is that we only need to do this dual setup once. Then we can just do what our awesome viewer Blackmagic does, which is before even turning future ROG Allies we buy on in the future, we simply put in this upgraded SSD. Okay, so just before we install, let's head into Windows settings, then privacy and security, then device encryption, and we need to toggle this to off to avoid any potential issues and conflicts. A tip is that while we're waiting for stuff like this throughout the whole setup process, is to have a film or TV show handy in the background to avoid boredom. When it's completed, which for me took around 30 minutes, let's shut down our Ally, remembering to unplug and remove an SD card if we have one inside. I'm going to rest my Ally X on the 2 cardboard stands that came with it and also a cloth. Next, let's remove all 6 screws from around the Ally X, with the middle bottom one not actually coming out. And then we get something like a guitar pick to carefully go around all of the sides to gently separate the top and bottom of the case, which can be a little bit finicky, so just take our time with this. As we pull them apart, there is a little ribbon, so let's be gentle with this. To be super safe, let's remove the battery by using our pick to slide downwards the silver bracket, and then gently use our screwdriver underneath the battery to pop it out. Super easy. Now let's take out our old SSD by unscrewing this one screw. Gently ease this out. Let's take our brand new SSD and put this ready to go in. Store our old SSD safely in the packaging to put back into the Ally X if we ever sell it in the future. And gently place our new SSD with the logo facing up. Screw it back in, push our black battery connector into place, push the silver lock connector back into place, and we're done, yes. Now let's carefully place our casing back together, and again we'll hear some clicks, which is fine. Screw all 6 screws back into place, and this really is so easy to do here. It only takes a minute, especially if you have an electric screwdriver like me. Double check that all sides are fully sealed, and that's it. For step 2, let's reinstall Windows. Again, we only need to do this if we've just upgraded our SSD. So let's plug in our Ally, wait until the orange light pops up, and this is because there's a sensor in the Ally that very cleverly recognizes when we've gone inside the device. So after a few minutes, we're into the BIOS. Press the Y button to bring up the advanced section. On the D-pad, scroll across 1 to the Asus Cloud Recovery option. Press A, and we simply go through all the steps to reinstall Windows, and also the ROG software like drivers and Armoury Crate. We don't need the wide keyboard for this, we can just use the touchscreen for all of the prompts. It may take a while to download depending on our internet speeds, and while it mostly does everything itself, we do need to keep an eye on it for some prompts. Especially here when it asks us, do we want to back up our files, so let's press no, as there are no files to back up. Then yes, to start the process. So as I say, it may take a while to have that film or TV show on in the background ready. Or just do what I did, which was cook some fajita boats. And hey, let us know what your favourite food is in the comments. So it took me about an hour to do this, and I have a 500 megabits per second broadband speed, and here it is just setting up the Ally like when we first unboxed by setting up our country, keyboard type, Wi-Fi, naming our device, fingerprint, and so on. A quick tip about the fingerprint, as I do get asked by you great viewers in that it doesn't seem too accurate, which is to make sure we register our fingerprint placed at all different angles, and this should help. So after all this setting up and updates, we'll be in the desktop. Let's quickly head into this PC section, and look at that. If you've just installed the 4TB SSD like me, then we'll have a ton of space available. For step 3, let's now set up dual booting with Bazzite. If you haven't upgraded your SSD like me, then you'll start here. And first let's head into settings, into privacy and security, in device encryption, and let's turn this to off, again to avoid potential conflicts and issues. And it only took me about 10 minutes to do this. Let's now plug in our mouse and keyboard. I'm just going to swap between the two to make life a little simpler for us as we partition our hard drive ready for Bazzite. Let's click on the magnifying glass at the bottom, type in disk management, and this opens up a Windows program, and right here we can see our C drive, which is our main storage and what we're going to split in half. Let's right click on this, click on the shrink volume option, and here we select our sizes with our total available at the top, which in my case is just over 3.8 terabytes. I'm going to type in here 2 terabytes, which is obviously 2000000, so that's 6 zeros in total. To be my Bazzite partition with Steam OS on, let's press shrink. It only takes 10 seconds with us having almost no files on. And here we can see our C drive with over 1.7 terabytes for Windows for all of our Game Pass games, etc., and over 1.9 terabytes for Steam OS. 2 super quick final things before we install Bazzite. The first is to go into Armoury Crate and install any updates, like when we first load it up we get this. Then head to settings, then update center, and make sure we're fully up to date, again to avoid any issues, and this will require a restart. And the second is to go into the My Asus app, update all here too, and I'd also recommend registering our Ally if we haven't already done so, and now we are ready to install Linux using Bazzite. So now we've split our hard drive in half and we're fully up to date. For step 4, let's install Bazzite. So on our Ally, let's open up our favourite web browser, which in my case is Brave. Head to bazzite.gg, link in the description, which is the official Bazzite webpage. From here, let's click on the download Bazzite button on the top right. In this left section, select our handheld, which in our case is the Ally X. In the desktop environment, let's select KDE for Steam OS. Click on download. I'm going to save it into my downloads folder. Here is the official documentation if we ever need it. So after it downloaded, it's just over 9 GB in size, and it took about 10 minutes for me on my 500 megabits per second Wi-Fi. Next, we need to flash this image onto our USB drive. So again, on our Ally's browser, go to etcher.balena.io, link in the description, as this flash program is called Balena Etcher. Man, who comes up with these random names, by the way? Let's click on the green download button, select the Windows version, and again into our downloads folder. Let's click on the Balena Etcher file to install. It takes about 30 seconds. Let's now plug in our USB flash drive. Click on the Flash from File button. Go to Downloads to select our 9 GB Bazzite file. Click Select Location. Tick our USB flash drive and press Select. Then press the all-important blue Flash button. We'll get this warning message saying all of our files will be erased, so if we're happy with this, then let's click the Yes I'm Sure button. And this took about 25 minutes for me, and it depends on how fast our USB flash drive is. Now we want to head into the BIOS, so hold down the volume down button at all times. Do not let go. Click on the power button, click on restart, remembering to hold that volume down button, and after about a minute we'll be in the BIOS. We need to tell Windows to boot Linux before booting Windows to install Bazzite. So to do this, in the top right boot priority section, we simply drag our USB stick to the top. Press the select button, then press OK. Next to these tiny options on the top left, we need to select install Bazzite. Now at the time of recording, we can't use the D-pad or thumbstick to select this, so we do need our wired keyboard at this point, in case you haven't plugged it in yet. So press up on the keyboard to select install Bazzite. We get lots of tiny writing, then this welcome to Bazzite screen. So let's select our language, then click continue. There are two things we need to do here. First, tap the installation destination. Our new partition should already be in here, so let's tap this. Then tap done on the top left. Then click on user creation, and it is crucial we create a user and a password. This will be something called our sudo password in Linux later on. Make sure you use a password that is something that you'll easily remember. Click done on the top left. Click begin installation on the bottom right. And again, this may take about 15 to 20 minutes. Next is this blue screen with options. Using our wired keyboard, select the second option, which is Enroll Mock, which is a machine owner key. Then press Enter. Then scroll down to Continue and press Enter. Then scroll down to Yes and press Enter. And for this password, type in Universal Blue. This is the amazing team that run Bazzite. Type this with no spaces and no capital letters. And we can't see this as we type, which is a little disconcerting, so take your time and then press enter. Now just select reboot and press enter, and this is the only time that we need to ever do this, thankfully. For step 5, we now need to set up Bazzite, and we're here in the Linux desktop, which will be very familiar to you if you've ever used a Steam Deck. We can now unplug our USB flash drive, as we won't need that ever again, yes! Then first, let's press the Wi-Fi button on the bottom right and connect to our home Wi-Fi. Next, this KDE wallet message pops up to store our sensitive info. I would recommend this, so just select a classic Blowfish encrypted file, and I just use my easy to remember password I used before. Now let's change the display scale by clicking this bottom left menu button, then Settings, then System Settings, scroll to Display and Monitor. You choose your preferred percentage, but I'll select 150%. Click Apply, and yes, that's much better. Let's finish setting up Bazzite by clicking Next. I'd recommend also setting an amazing app called Decaloader and also EmuDeck, which is incredible for emulation to on, then click Install. If we're installing Debloat, it will ask us for our sudo password, which is the same one we set up on this page when we created our user and password for Bazzite. Click next. I'm not going to install any of these, so let's leave all of them unchecked and press install button. This screen doesn't do anything, so press next. Click done, and we're all good. One final thing before we head into game mode, which is that the Bazzite team recommend we log into our Steam account first. This glitched out for me as it's been a while, so I closed it, pressed the Steam button at the bottom, entered my login details, and we're now in Steam. So we can press the menu button, click restart, then restart now, and it should take about 5 to 10 minutes this first time. We'll come to this screen. Our thumbsticks and buttons work here, so scroll down to our language, then select our time zone, select our Wi-Fi. This will take another 5 or so minutes. We need to sign into Steam one final time. We're in our welcome to Steam Deck page, and this is it. We are fully set up and welcome to Steam OS. The command center button brings up the menu, and the armor crate button brings up our quick settings menu. For step 6, let's get to know parts of Bazzite called Handheld Daemon, which are really awesome extra settings. To do this, just click the armor crate button twice. Here we can change the TDP power settings like in Windows. We can change the RGB thumbsticks. And pressing this Y button at the top brings up the full menu. Again, here's TDP, and I recommend enabling this change TDP with view and Y. So purple is 17 watt performance, blue is 25 watt turbo, white is manual, and red is 13 watt silent. There's RGB, and I like the solid, but I'm going to turn it up to 100% as I personally love the RGB around the thumbsticks. There's control options like the Nintendo mode, there's shortcuts we can play around with, and finally settings. So we're in our final 3 steps now, and if you've got this far then you're doing amazing. So for step 7, let's download games, and downloading our Steam games in Steam OS is so easy. Just select one in our library, then click install, and if we press the command center button, go to settings, go all the way down to storage, and here we can see how much space we have, which in my case is a whopping 1.8 terabytes, crazy. Remember that SteamOS is slightly different to Windows in that our shaders load beforehand, so there can be a little wait, whereas in Windows it loads shaders during the game. So don't worry if games take a little while to load up initially. Let's download some Game Pass games on Windows, so let's head there by clicking the command center button, scroll to power, hold the volume down button and restart. In the BIOS menu, we simply press the command center button, select Windows, and after a moment we're in, so head to Armory Crate, to Game Platforms. We download our games from our launchers here, so I'll select the Xbox app. It glitched out on me a bit, so I clicked the Review Now button quickly, then pressed Update. Here we can scroll through Game Pass games and install to our C drive. A little tip by the way, when downloading games is head to Armory Crate, then Settings, then Performance, then Eco Assist, and turn this Keep This Machine Running to on so the display goes to black when plugged in, so our downloads don't stop halfway through unexpectedly. For step 8, let's talk storage. So games we just want for Windows, like Game Pass games that we cannot play in SteamOS, we can just download to the Windows C drive. But one of the most amazing things about this setup is that we can share games using an SD card, so let's pop this in. Let's set up Steam game sharing in Windows first by heading to Armory Crate, Game Platforms, then Steam. It's deja vu this first time that we select our language, then time zone, and then log in. Press the B button, go to power, then exit big picture mode. Then at the top Steam icon, press that, then settings, then storage. Click on the drop down arrow, select add drive, and here we add our SD card on the D drive. So if we go to view, then big picture mode, install the game, and it now asks us where, so we can now share most games between Windows and SteamOS on an SD card. So let's head back into SteamOS by simply restarting, head to settings, go to storage, and our SD card now shows up here. And for the final step 9 is to simply have fun trying all of this stuff out. And I'll give you some directions with links to the following in the description. For SteamOS, check out my brand new Switch setup guide, my Chiaki setup guide to remote play our PS5 console, my PXPlay setup guide which is also fantastic for PS5 remote play, my 7 essential Debloat plugin guide to customize game artwork and much more, and also my EmuDeck setup guide to play all of our amazing retro games. I'd love to hear which of these key areas that you're excited to do the most, and also share any tips that you have below in the comments. And as a thank you for watching this far, I'd love to share this awesome quote. Let's stay away from drama, arguments, noise and negativity. Make room for the good things in life. Oh boy, there are family, friends and co-workers who really do create so much unnecessary drama and stress. But let's do our very best to avoid potential conflicts, to keep our peace and remain positive. So stay encouraged today, guys. And as an extra bonus treat for staying right to the end on what is the longest vid I've ever attempted right here on the channel, here's our gorgeous rescue cat and her name is Pancake. If you enjoyed today's video, then check out my best settings guide for the incredible Doom The Dark Ages. As I say, these tutorials took literally hundreds of hours to put together, so please do like and subscribe if you found this helpful. I appreciate every single one of you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.